Imagine a cozy cafe. Everything's dark oak wood and inviting. It smells of freshly baked cinnamon rolls and freshly brewed coffee. There are books on display and a cat sleeping soundly on the counter. The place is filled with peace and calm, and there are people enjoying their drinks while reading or writing. There are no computers or phones to be seen. It's as if time has stopped and there's nowhere to rush. In another room, there's a group of people engaged in a quiet conversation, making new connections and learning new things. It's a friendly atmosphere of a tight-knit community that welcomes anyone new. The entire space is filled with magic. Magic that comes from books, chocolate, and mysterious liquid bakes. But also from friendship, good conversation, and the cats who always keep you company and deliver exactly what you need. Welcome back to the Cat Coach Cafe. Me and the cat coaches, Aragorn, Apricot, and Prince, are thrilled to have you back. This is a place to slow down, connect with the seasons, and to share our love for all things cats and books, and also a place where I share some of my favorite Czech seasonal traditions in the hope they will inspire you to slow down and notice the seasons even more. It's also a place where we meet people from all walks of life. Most often, they'll be authors, cat lovers, or both, or anyone who embraces catitude and the principles of catful living, meaning they live on their own terms and make the most of what they have. As always, I'd like to encourage you to take this time at the Cat Coach Cafe just for yourself and forget about all the to-dos, and ideally just sit down and relax and enjoy today's episode, which is all about hope. Before we get to that, let's start with our drink meditation as always, so we can fully connect with ourselves and the moment we find ourselves in. So, if you don't have your drink ready, pause the podcast and come back when you're ready. We are about to begin. Take your drink and close your eyes. Hug your mug with the palms of your hands. Feel its warmth. Is it too hot, maybe? Or is it pleasantly warm? Notice the warmth travel through your body, from your palms to your arms, all the way to your soul. Feel it. Feel the warmth. Now, take the mug and bring it closer to your lips, but do not drink just yet. Just inhale the scent of your drink deeply. Let it fill you with the wonder and magic of the faraway lands the ingredients come from. Or perhaps images of your very own garden, if that's where your tea comes from. What images do come to your mind when you smell your drink? Notice them. Let your imagination run wild. Take another deep inhale, taking in all the scent your drink has to offer. Let it fill you with peace and warmth. And then hold your breath at the peak of your inhale, just for a few seconds. And then exhale. Now, with your eyes still closed, Take a sip. Notice the taste. Let it wash over your whole being. How does it make you feel? Take another sip and do the same. Beautiful. You are ready to open your eyes. We are standing at the door to the magical Advent time. This Sunday, we will light up the first candle on the Advent wreath and open the first window in our Advent calendars. But before that, a night full of magic awaits. I used to love Christmas. I always joke that the whole year really is about getting back to Christmas. However, my relationship with Christmas has changed throughout the last decade of my life. Don't get me wrong, I still love Christmas dearly, and my heart still skips a beat when I light up the Christmas tree lights. But the truth is, the older I get, the more I am in love with autumn and only unwillingly say goodbye to it. Where I used to put up Christmas decorations on the 1st of November in the past, impatient for the most magical time of year to start, now I wish autumn would last longer. And though I still love all my Christmas decorations and always take them out fondly, part of me is always sad autumn has passed and I have to wait yet another year for it to return. The way I celebrate Christmas has also changed. From celebrating in a family of 7, it's just me and my mom these days. And the cat coaches, of course, thank God for them. But even there, we went down to 2 after Prince's passing. I know he's there with us though, even if we can't see him. But in this small circle, Christmas just doesn't feel so special anymore. And I've done the mistake in the past years of looking for that same kind of special despite the new circumstances, which only led to more disappointment. This year, however, I am going to approach Christmas differently. I will look for creating an entirely new feeling. Maybe less excitement, but more fulfillment, more peace, and more nourishing. And also with the thought that these small Christmases we currently have with my mom may not be what I wish for exactly, but if I want things to change in the future, then these Christmases will one day be a thing of the past, and I know I will look back at them fondly and miss some aspects of them for sure. So they are indeed special, just different kind of special. So my vibe for this year's Christmas is hopeful and grateful. All that to say that if your relationship to Christmas has changed over the years as well, and perhaps you don't feel so much joy anymore, it is completely okay. We change, our lives change, and perhaps the Christmases of the past aren't even what we need right now, and that's perfectly fine too. So let go of the pressure and those expectations. No matter how we feel though, if we are excited to welcome Christmas again or we feel like we lost that spark a little, it is and can be the most magical time of all. And I find the best way to reignite that spark and perhaps bring back those feelings of true joy and magic buried in the heaviness of our everyday lives is going back to basics, to the core of Christmas and the true meaning of the customs we hold. In any case, though, remember you can make Christmas what you want and what you need this year. But if you wish to feel that magic again or just feel more magic than stress, this is the way to go. So let's get to it. Let's remind ourselves of the true meaning of the season and the beautiful rituals connected with it. Starting with the magical night on St. Andrew's Eve, the true gate to Christmas. St. Andrew's Eve, celebrated on the 30th November, not only marks the start of the Advent time, but it is also a night especially suitable for all kinds of magic. In the past, together with Christmas Eve, this night was the one night you could see a glimpse of your future or your husband-to-be. Probably the most famous tradition is pouring lead. These days, it is typically done on Christmas Eve, but in the past, it was done on St. Andrew's night. If you are wondering what pouring lead actually means, at the beginning of last century, lead was poured at Christmas in every family. Heated in a spoon over a flame, lead was poured into water, where it created various shapes. The shapes predicted the fate, but could also show the profession of the groom-to-be. The root of the tradition may be a lot older though, allegedly going back to the Celts who once inhabited these lands. Unfortunately, this tradition seemed to be dying out with only 7% of Czechs keeping it these days. And I have to say, I only learned about it in my adulthood, as it wasn't something we have done at home. But I've been eyeing the lead sets that are available on the market for a few years now. Maybe this year is the time. If you don't exactly have lead though, you can try the same thing with melted candle wax, which, to be honest, might actually be a better option for myself as well. And beware of your dreams tonight on St. Andrew's night, because what you will see are the things you care about the most. So try to remember your dream and write it down first thing in the morning. Even if it makes no sense to you now, it might become clear to you when you come back to it and the time is right. And now the Advent time can truly begin. The origins of celebrating Advent go back to the 4th century Spain, and first written records were found in France around the same time. It only spread into the rest of Europe and the world in the 6th century through the church. In the past, Advent used to be longer, starting right after St. Martin's Day after 11th of November. It was only in the 12th century that it was shortened to the 4 weeks form we know today. However, it's always been a time of fasting and joyful anticipation. Pagans would be awaiting the return of the sun, the winter solstice celebration, and later the church turned it into a religious holiday, awaiting the birth of the Messiah. But both had one thing in common, and that was hope, and hopeful anticipation of better future. Hope is also what the first candle on the Advent wreath, the candle of the prophets, symbolizes. Hope for better tomorrows, hope for a better life, hope for any area of your life where you seek improvement. So, as you light up the first candle this Sunday, take a moment to think about all the things you're hoping for or that you're hopeful about. What do you hope to manifest in your life in the new season to come? And to which areas of your life do you bring some hope? Perhaps it is a good time to take your pen and journal on these questions by the light of the candle of the prophets, which might just hold some special powers to manifest those hopes of yours. Advent time also brings about the beautiful tradition of Christmas markets, which goes back all the way to the Middle Ages, with the first December market held in Vienna in 1296. The first Christmas market as such, though, is believed to have started in Bautzen, Germany in 1384, and it was in fact established by a Czech king, Wenceslas IV, who, by the way, is closely connected to the history of my hometown, Kutná Hora, which once upon a time was a true royal town where the king resided. The second oldest Christmas markets are the ones in Dresden, Germany, which were established in 1434 and which are my personal tip for visiting. I've visited quite a few Christmas markets in my life in different countries, and Dresden still wins for me. That said, Prague is a magical place to be during Advent time too, with its main Christmas markets held in the Old Town Square, which have a long tradition as well, though there is no precise date that's been recorded in the history books. There are mentions of markets that go way back to the Middle Ages as well. The character of the old Christmas markets was vastly different though. Instead of mostly selling souvenirs and gifts these days, you could get all kinds of ingredients there, as well as fresh produce, exotic sweets, and oriental spices, and some handmade gifts as well. I wish I could go back to those times and visit those Christmas markets, especially since snow was a common occurrence in Prague back in those days. And the Prague residents wearing skis and kids being transported on sledge were a common sight too. These days, however, come first Advent Sunday. Prague has a beautiful tradition of lighting the gas lamps along the royal route all the way from the Powder Gate to Charles Bridge. Nowadays, the gas lights operate automatically, but Advent time is the only time of the year when the gas lamps are lit up by a lamplighter in full costume as well. It's such a beautiful sight, and I highly recommend going to see it. Together with the Christmas lights and the fairy tale beauty of Prague, it truly feels like going back in time and finding yourself in a fairy tale land. Talking of Advent, do you know where the tradition of Advent calendars come from? First Advent calendar came to light in Germany in 1908 when a bookseller Gerhard Lang started selling first cutout Advent calendar called In the Land of Little Jesus, which were two sheets of pictures with little poems in a fairy tale-like winter scenery. Lang was in fact inspired by his mother, who used to give him a box with 24 cookies. Talking of Christmas cookies, last time we talked about the tradition of Christmas cookies in the Czech Republic. Now, let me tell you a little bit about where this tradition actually comes from as we come to the start of the baking season. Our ancestors didn't make the cookies just to satisfy their sweet tooth, but they believed they had the power to protect them, and they were used as a gift to the underworld to satisfy the evil spirits. Offering Christmas cookies for blessings in the area of love, cookies in shape of hearts, health, cookies in shape of flower, and brought good luck as well, cookies in shape of star. Eating certain types of cookies during the Holy Night was believed to support the likelihood of the wishes coming true. Our ancestors used to make cookies in shape of different figures too, but these were replaced mostly by figures made of chocolate these days. However, they were made to protect us from bewitchment, gossip, and any kinds of curse. Later, different type of spices was added to the cookies as well as honey, and these later became known as the gingerbreads. If you'd like to try some traditional Czech Christmas cookies, keep an eye on my Substack, Check the Recipe, where Czech is spelled as in the Czech Republic, where I will be sharing some of my favorite recipes in the coming days. The evening before St. Nicholas Day, December 5th, St. Nicholas strolls around the city accompanied by an angel and a devil, visiting children and handing out presents. The legend says Nicholas came from a rich Christian family and had a kind heart, so when he heard of a family with 3 daughters having no money for their dowry, and thus facing the fate of being either sold to slavery or to a brothel, he would leave 3 golden apples in the stockings which were hanging outside to dry during the night. This is where the custom of leaving presents in stockings comes from. And yes, you guessed it, It was St. Nicholas who was later turned into the character of Santa Claus. When I was growing up, the gift giving was much replaced by sweets giving. The kids who were good would be given a stocking of sweets along with some rare seasonal fruit like tangerines or oranges or even kiwis, as well as some nuts like whole peanuts, which used to be available only at this time of year. However, those who were bad would only get a piece of coil from the devil. I used to be extremely scared of the devil, I must say, but I loved this day anyway. It was full of magic. St. Nicholas was strolling through the streets along with an angel, and me and my sister would be given tons of favorite sweets from our grandparents as well as our parents to last us well until Christmas, making the wait much sweeter and making December the best and most magical month of the year. Though mainly intended for children, I tried to bring this tradition of St. Nicholas back in my family. Only this time, it's no more unhealthy sweets that I give to my loved ones, but rather some high quality tea they love or some healthy treats. But that said, it's the perfect time to treat yourself to something delicious on this day. Perhaps bake something at home and share it with your teammates or colleagues, or even neighbors. Or perhaps invite a friend out for a coffee to your favorite coffee place. Use this time to stop, indulge, and show some kindness, and perhaps think about how you could help those around you. Going back to the theme of hope for better days to come, let us take a little break here and let me welcome a very special guest at the Cat Coach Cafe. Sheri Fink is a best-selling author of beautiful children's books and the president of Whimsical World, an empowering brand with a mission to inspire, delight, and educate children of all ages, while planting seeds of self-esteem and high achievement. She is best known for her beloved children's book series of social emotional learning books, including The Little Rose, The Little Unicorn, The Little Monster, and more. Sheri loves to write and has published 17 award-winning books to this day, and more are in the works. The latest one, the one we're going to discuss today, just so happens to feature a main character who is a cat. Besides her passion for writing, Sheri is also passionate about inspiring people to follow their hearts and their dreams. I, for one, have discovered Sheri's work through a workshop about publishing children's books, which turned out into so much more than just a book publishing workshop. I left inspired and ready to conquer my dreams, just like I had after our conversation, which truly felt like chatting over a coffee with a friend, as we didn't really know how to stop and could have gone for hours to no end. Sheri truly is one of the most inspiring people I met, and I hope that our conversation will not only delight, but also plant those seeds for better days ahead.
Like you, I've always had a dream of writing a children's book. As a kid, I wanted to be a writer, a teacher, a mother, a princess, and a mermaid. And I feel like I have the best career because it's the only career where you can legitimately do every single one of those things, right?
Be a mermaid, especially.
Yes, especially that was literally, so I had a photo shoot where I got dressed up as a mermaid. The woman does mermaid photo shoots. So she has the tail and all the accessories, and she dressed me up as a mermaid, put me on the beach, did photos, and they're all over my website. Like if you visit, you'll see them. It's seriously still one of the most magical days of my life. And I did it as a grown-up, but it was the best. So anyway, side note aside, but I always wanted to like be creating things. And as a kid, I created them because I was trying to create an escape for myself. Like my family worked very, very hard, but we always had food, but we didn't always have time for like, and money for the things that you think are important as a kid, like new toys and trips and fancy clothes. And new books and all those things. So the way I dealt with that was like creating my own little worlds. I was writing books, I was making toys, I was making bracelets, and I was running little businesses and going door to door and trying to sell those things, embarrassing my family, because they were very humble and they were like, "What are you doing? Just play like a normal kid." And I'm like, well, what does that mean? Like, this is fun for me. So I've always been that weirdo who wanted to like have businesses. Even my Barbies had businesses. So I just poured myself into that. And as I grew up, I thought, I was a child of the 80s and I wanted the big job with the money and the perks and all of the things. So after I finished college, I immediately wanted to go into the corporate world, and I thought it was going to be this like magical place. It was a lot less magical than I imagined. And I kept thinking, well, the next job, the next degree program I do, the next opportunity, the next boss, the next client, the next blah, 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 blah. Always pushing the milestone out a little bit further, thinking, well, that's when it's going to feel fulfilling. And I loved what I was doing. I was good at it and I kept getting rewarded. And I kept trying different things. I was like, well, let me try a different industry. Let me try a different company. Let me try a different boss. I kept thinking the next thing is it. But what I realized is like when I got to what I thought was like the top of the ladder that I'd been working for over 12 years, had a master's degree, got a business management certificate, like all these things rolled up into this culminating point. And I got the promotion and I thought, wow, that's it? Like, this is not what I thought it would be. And maybe I had my ladder against the wrong wall all of this time. And I was devastated because I had poured everything. I'm a go-getter kind of girl. I like to get things done. I like to get the A plus. Like, I'm an overachiever. And I had done that for over 12 years. And to get to that point and realize that maybe I had possibly wasted it, I was really heartbroken. And while I was going through this soul searching period, I had what I like to call a gift of adversity, which did not feel like a gift at the time and took years to look at it this way. But there was a woman in my office who was bullying me, and it was really, really bad. And I did not have coping skills to deal with this. Like it was very hard for me. So I kept reading books and talking to people and trying all these things to make the situation better because I didn't want to run away. As I'm raised by a single parent, like my mom taught me that if you earn a place at that table, you sit down, you don't drag the chair away, like, so I couldn't run away. I felt like I was trapped and I hate that feeling. So I was driving to work one day and I had tried everything I could think of to make the situation better. And I was crying. I was just bawling in the car. And I was saying to myself, to the universe, I don't even know, like, help me. I will do anything to make this situation better. I was out of solutions, And in that moment, this little idea came to me about a rose that grows up in a weed bed. And because she's different, thinks that she's a weed. And then that story wrote through me in the car on the way to work. I had so many stoplights and I was like, oh my gosh, like the story was starting and I was like, oh, let me capture it. So I grabbed whatever I could get out of my car. I had the back of an envelope and a mini golf pencil. That's what I could get my hands on. And at the stoplights, I'm writing it fast as possible on my leg. And I'm like, this is crazy, but this is amazing, And I got to work that day and I was like, wow, I can never tell anybody this because this is so weird. I didn't know authors and entrepreneurs, and I didn't know these people yet, right? I had been in the corporate world and I didn't even have these kinds of conversations. And so I put that story away for more than a year, but I made a decision that day that 1 year from that day, I would either be working for someone else, doing something else, or the big, fat, juicy, scary one, working for myself. That was the one I really wanted. So fast forward a whole year, and of course I waited the whole time. I had been interviewed and I had done things, but nothing felt like the right move. And I stuck with it. I keep my promises, and I thought, I'll help the client get this done. I'll stay with the company for the conference. I'll speak at this event. I'll do this thing for them, for them, for them, for them. And then when that day arrived, I was like, well, what am I going to do for me? Am I going to keep my word to myself? I promised myself. So I wrote up my letter. I gave them my 2 weeks notice. Everyone called in emergency meetings like the president of the company sat me down and was like, what are you doing? Like, why are you leaving? And I was like, I feel I'm destined for more. I want to have a bigger impact on the world. I I feel like my contributions here are limited from what I want to do. And he's like, what do you want to do? And I was like, well, I don't know. So people thought I was crazy, and I thought so too. I can't even explain it. But I spent that year preparing. And I think that's the part people leave out of their stories a lot. Like, I had a whole exit strategy. Like, I saved up my income as much as I could. I didn't take any vacations. I didn't buy any extra stuff. I paid my mortgage, paid my bills, and squirreled away as much money as I could into my savings so that I would have a safety net. I didn't know what I was going to be leaping onto, but I knew I needed money to make that a more peaceful transition. So there were a lot of things that I did in preparation to leave. I didn't just decide I'm done with this and leave in a storm. Like, no, no, no. I don't burn the bridge. It wasn't like that. It gave me a lot of skills that were valuable when I did become an entrepreneur. But I didn't even know at that point I was going to do it. I had forgotten about that little story until a week after I left the company. I had been scheduled to go to a conference. And so I went to the conference, and the first person that befriended me was a woman from Canada who I think was an earth angel. She asked me about writing. She was talking about writing, and I was like, no, I'm not a writer. And she's like, no, 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 you've got more. And I remembered that little story that I put in that drawer, and I was so bashful. I was like, my face was all red, my chest was all hot. Like, I didn't want to talk to her about anything personal. I didn't even know this woman, right? And I was still in that self-protection mode from being bullied. My solution to that, which I now know is not correct, was to like not shine, was to just dim my bulb so that I wouldn't have the attention of the other person, and then hopefully they would leave me alone.
I
That
can
does not
totally
work.
relate to that.
Oh, and it feels terrible. It feels terrible being less than what you know you can be. Like,
Yeah.
nobody wants to be that person, but you know, you learn, you live and learn. So I was still in the learning process, as I always am. And this woman, she just kept pushing me, pushing me. And finally I was like, fine, I read the little story. She's like, tell me. And I said, it's about a rose that grows up in a weed bed. And because she's different, thinks she's a weed. And she said, I just got goosebumps. You have to do something with that because my grandchildren need that message.
Mm.
And that's when the light bulb went off. And I thought, maybe it's a children's book. And then I remembered as a kid, I always wanted to write books. And I thought, wow, maybe I could help somebody. Maybe I could help kids not have the stress that I had as an adult, going through this situation. I was like, wow. And that idea simultaneously scared me and was like tantalizing me. I couldn't stop thinking about it. It was like a puzzle my brain was trying to solve all the time. And then she kept introducing me to people at the conference as the woman working on a children's book. And at first I was like, no, 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 it's a misunderstanding. That's not quite right. And then they'd look confused and then disappointed and they'd walk away. And then finally I was like, you know what? The next episode, I'm just going to say yes. I'm never going to see these people again. What do they know? They don't know I'm not doing a children's book. Like, I'm still thinking about it, but that doesn't matter. So I started saying yes. And people would say, tell me the story. And then everybody was like, oh, when is it coming out? I need that book. Oh, my daughter's going through that situation. Oh, I need that for my nephew. I need that. Like, I went through that. And I was like, wow, this is kind of universal.
Mhm.
So when I got home from that conference, I was on fire. I was like, what does it take to do a children's book? I didn't know anything. So I had to learn, and I made a lot of mistakes, but I just kept moving forward. And 6 months later, I had a book in my hands. 2 weeks
Wow.
after it went live as a published book, it became a #1 bestseller on Amazon in its category. Then it stayed at #1 on the bestseller list for over 60 weeks.
Wow.
And I had no marketing budget. It was word of mouth. It was amazing. And it
Mm.
just showed me, like, when you have that passion and that feeling in your heart that you are meant to do something, as long as you're moving forward and taking action, you'll get correction. Course correction will happen. You'll be like, oh, not that path. Okay, I'll go this other way. But when you stop and stand still, you get no direction. Nothing happens. You got to be moving forward. So every day I would try to take 5 steps in the direction of my goal. And sometimes it was a very small step, like respond to an email or reach out to somebody or do research about something, but it was a step. And after day after day after day of 5 steps, 5 steps, 5 steps, you end up getting a very far distance from where you started. And I like to say everything good in my life came from having the courage to bring that story out of the drawer, because I ended up meeting my husband doing this. I've published 17 books now in 3 different genres, and I'm working on a new one. It's very amazing what can happen when you get out of your own way. Like, you listen to the universe, it's redirecting you, and then jump for what you want to do, but in a smart and strategic way.
I mean, that story that day in the car, that was literally downloaded from the universe, right? So looking back, it's so obvious that there was a meaning to it, because things like that don't happen just like that. But it takes us so long sometimes to see things clearly. So,
Yes.
yeah. And it's funny that when you downloaded that and written it down, that you didn't even know that it's a children's story. That's so
I didn't even
funny.
think about it. I
Hmm.
was just in such an emotional, raw state.
Hmm.
I think I had to get there in order to allow it to come through, because I was in my thinking brain all the time.
Hmm.
And I'm a very creative, passionate person, but I had kind of turned that off to be a corporate robot. And,
Hmm.
I was the person that if people couldn't get something done, they'd contact me and I would make it happen.
Hmm.
And so I felt like even though I was doing creative problem solving, it didn't feel like I was really engaging that side of me.
Hmm.
It was just get the job done,
Yeah.
boring. But I I think it's easy to get into a trap of when you're good at something, you think that's what you have to do,
Hmm.
right? Just because we're good at something, if it's not nurturing us, we don't have to keep doing that.
Hmm.
We can move and evolve and try. And it's okay to say, you know what, I dedicated my career to this, and now I want to change. And I think a lot of times we're scared to do that. And I know I was like, even when you're writing your books, like changing genres, writing for adults instead of kids, or writing beyond your series, or it's all taking a leap, and the fun comes in following the inspiration. And
Yeah.
the work is there too. But the fun part is so rewarding, because when you finally do it, whether it's a success or not, you have the feeling of success because you know what it took to get there and
Hmm.
you went for
Yeah. Yeah. I think we, especially as you said, as women, we just feel like we don't want to be irresponsible, sort of. So we're like stick to what we're good at, and we don't want to disappoint anybody. And even when we have like these ideas that make no sense to us, even though they're coming to us, we're like overthinking it.
it. Yes.
We're like such overthinkers. Like guys are not such overthinkers. They just go for things.
It's true. I asked my husband, I said, do you feel guilty when you're doing this one thing and you're not doing this thing with the kids? He's like, no, because I'm doing this other thing. I'm like, that's really nice and simple. Like, I have mom guilt all the time, no matter what I'm doing. Like,
But it's so
I could be
logical, right?
it's so logical to not feel that way, but it's the way I feel. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
hard to break that habit,
yeah.
but I'm working on it. I want to be the kind of mom that shows your kids that there are infinite possibilities and that
Mm,
you can have a family and have a business and make a difference. I don't want to be one of those people. I know a lot of people who, once they became a parent, decided like they were going to blame their kid for not pursuing their art or their business or their
mm,
career. And that's okay. It's okay not to do those things, but it's not okay to blame your child,
yeah,
you
yeah.
know, because they carry that burden. They feel the weight of that. And I don't want to put any burdens on my kids, like nothing that I can control. I'm sure that I'll put my own nonsense on them unintentionally, but I want them to see mommy does this, and we can do them together, you know?
Ah, that's so beautiful. Well, and you're certainly having a huge impact on kids also through your books. And so can you talk a little bit about why you think it's important to write books for children that have empowering messages? Why is it important to start so early, basically, with these kinds of messages?
Yes. Well, I like to think of it as planting seeds. If you plant seeds of self-esteem, they get nurtured their entire lives. So when they get to be an adult, they don't have the same question marks about themselves that I grew up with, wondering if I was good enough, or if I was smart enough, or maybe I was too much, it depends on the day. It just it fluctuates. But I think if we instill a sense in them, like if they grow up, it's part of their fabric of their being. They no longer have to question it. Like I grew up very humbly, and I saw my parents struggle a lot when I was a little kid. And when I think about that, the difference between my experience and my children's experience is night and day. And I'm delighted. That's consciously chosen. Like, I don't want them to feel that level of struggle, like, not when they're children, an environment that they can't control, you know? So I think by putting these messages into books that empower them to be who they are and to embrace differences and to be kind and to make friends and do all the things, it becomes just, it's like the background music of their life. They
Mm.
don't, it's not a foreign concept that they're presented with when they go to college, and they're like, oh wait, there are different people here. Like, no, they're just around. They see diverse people represented. They see different ideas represented, and they know that it's okay to have more than one thought, like, I think that's so critical because it just informs who they are and who they're becoming, and it makes our world better.
Well, talking about stories, and since because we're here at the Cat Coach Cafe, your latest book is featuring a main hero who's a cat. So could you
Yes.
tell us about your latest book?
Well, my newest book is called Magenta, and I'm so excited because this book has been a dream for many years, but I already had things in my queue. I already knew what was coming down the pipeline for years, and finally, Magenta gets to come to life. But it is about a lost kitten who discovers a magical cottage in the woods and then is accidentally enchanted with magical powers by the young sorceress who lives there. But the only problem is that the young sorceress named Iridessa has a white raven who does not like cats. So you get to read in the story how she becomes magical and then how they become a family. And it's
Oh,
about finding the perfect place where you belong.
oh, it's beautiful. So what was the inspiration behind it? Like, why did you choose a cat to be this kind of character and the hero of such a story?
Do you know what's funny is I don't think I chose it to be a cat. I think she chose me to tell the story. Like
Just
I
like
always,
cats do, just like cats
yes,
chose us, right?
right, that's right. Like I've always had cats. I mean, I don't now. We have a dog, but and two kids. But in my whole life, I've grown up with cats. My very first cat was a black cat, and I had another black cat while I was in high school. And this story, which I know you've seen, is about a black cat, and she just came to me in my mind, like in my imagination. It was always a black cat, and she had these incredible wings and golden eyes and golden paw prints, and I thought, oh wow, that's so good. Like I want to hear more about this magical little creature, and her world. And she's just always been a cat. I think because cats are mysterious and loving, and they're crafty, they're smart. And this is a smart character. Like she doesn't know everything about the world, but she's learning very quickly. So she
As
just
cats do.
has all the great cat qualities.
When are you getting a cat then?
We shall see. We have our hands full. We have a toddler and a newborn and an Italian Greyhound, and he's a character himself. He's actually the star of some of my husband's books. So,
Oh,
um,
okay.
yeah, he's the star of El Perro con Sombrero, the series, which is like one of the best-selling bilingual book series in the world. And he's got quite a personality of his own, but we'll see. We got to work on that. In the meantime, though, we have a lot of family members who have cats, and we get a lot of time with animals. My daughter absolutely loves animals, so we'll see.
Have you ever considered shifting to books for more grown-up kids, like more text-dense books than what you usually write? Because for me, as I always wanted to write children's books as well, and I love these picture books. But the older I am and the more I try to sort of get back to it, I find it actually super difficult to write such short stories that still have to have that essence, right? In so few words, really, that I
It's
just feel like I can never do that, even though I would actually love to. But I just find it's much more difficult than to write longer stories. I don't know how you feel about that.
a lot. I agree with you. Like it's an art and a science because
Yeah.
you have to get all the emotion in and all of the any lesson you want to embed in it. Plus, you have to tell a compelling story. And a lot of people, if you do something really well, it looks simple, and they think, oh, well, anybody can do this thing, and it's just not true.
Until you try.
Yeah, it's very hard.
Yeah, it
Then
is.
give it to your target customer and see what they'll tell you the truth. Like, they'll tell you what's not working. It's very humbling. So I have been very fortunate to be successful with picture books. And I've focused mostly on that. That's just what I've been inspired to write most of the time. But I've also written a couple baby board books that expand these characters' worlds into a baby form. And I've written some books for grown-ups. The one thing that I haven't done yet, and I do mean yet, is writing middle grade for that slightly older age group that can read chapter books. And I'm very excited to share that it's one of my goals. Like this Magenta character is in my heart so deeply. I've fallen in love with these characters and I want to expand this world for them. So I'm actually going to be doing something I've never seen done. I am going to be taking what I've started here and I'm going to make it into a 3-book series based on these characters. And I have very sophisticated storylines. I've been working on this for years too. And I'm hoping that the first one will be ready to debut in 2026, and then we'll do one per year. That's my goal. I've never written for that age group before. I've presented for them before, but not written, you know? So it's something that I'm growing into. And I'm really stoked because the stories, the outlines they're so good. It's the kind of thing that I would love to have read as a kid, and I even now would love to read. It's so fun and so adventurous and magical, and there's like little surprises woven in there that are payoffs. So if you started with a picture book and you grew into the middle grade
Oh,
novels,
that's
it's
such a good
perfect.
idea. That's
Thank you.
excellent.
Yeah, because
Oh,
a lot
I
of
want to
books
read it, by the way, because I just what you
are
described, that's my type of book. And I'm just like, now that I have my niece, I have like this excuse to go and shop for children's books, which I really want myself. So, what was the most challenging thing for you on your writing journey?
Hmm. I think just having the courage to tell my origin story,
Mm.
because I was so embarrassed. I had so much shame around being bullied and letting it affect me on that level as a grown up. I I had a business coach early on in my business, and she said, no, you have to tell that story. And I was like crying. Anytime I would mention it, I'd start crying because it still really shook me, that I went through that. It was very traumatic for me. And she said, you have to tell the story because that's what people are going to connect with. And I was like, well, I don't want people to know that about me. I'm embarrassed, like I'm an adult. I should have everything already figured out. Like I should know how to handle these situations and do it with grace and perfection and whatever. And she's like, no, 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 that's not how life works. And she was right. Like when I have the courage to tell people the truth, they come to me and they tell me their truth. And when you're connecting on an authentic level, it almost doesn't even matter what you're saying because it's the way people feel. You give people the permission to feel the truth for themselves. And that is a whole nother level. It's something I never anticipated when I was in the overthinking part of my career.
As a best-selling author yourself and someone who has written 17 books, I wonder, do you still fight self-doubt sometimes, or has that disappeared for you?
Yeah. So as an author, you will have peaks and valleys, right? And you'll keep your sights on a higher mountain. You'll get to the top of one and you'll see another one and you'll want to climb that one too. But even when you've had 17 number one best-selling books, even after you've won awards, even after you get fan mail, you will still have moments of self-doubt, especially when you're starting to write something new or you're getting ready to publish something new. If it's beyond your genre or beyond your series or just anything new will scare you. But that is really good because if you are not scared, then it doesn't matter. If it doesn't matter, why do it, right? It's got to have meaning for you. That makes it fun and rewarding. So if you're feeling scared, that doesn't mean you shouldn't do something. It just means that that is the direction that you need to go because that is the thing you most need to accomplish to overcome that fear and grow and look at the next mountain to climb.
All right. So in the ecosystem of Cat Coach Cafe or Cat Coach Diaries, I use the term of catitude as a way of living on your own terms and following your path, following your journey, even if it's the journey less traveled. That's really what it stands for in this context. And from what you're saying, that's something you yourself are very passionate about as well. So to close this conversation with some inspiring words, I thought I'd ask you, what do you think it takes to follow our dreams and what is at risk if we don't?
Well, I definitely think you need courage. You need courage to go against the grain, right? Like well-meaning people will tell you, oh, do this or oh, do that because that's what worked for them. Or they'll say, oh, don't try that because they don't want you to be disappointed, right? But they have no idea what you're capable of. And neither do you unless you try. And you have nothing to lose by trying. You don't have it yet. So if you try to get it and you don't get it, you're in the same place you were before, but you've learned more, right? So I feel like if it's something that you're passionate about, just figure it out and do it. Especially these days, like you can Google so many things. You can look things up on YouTube. You can find different resources that didn't exist 10, 20, 30 years ago. Like, and you can live many different lifetimes, just like cats. You can have 9 lives, different careers and different passions and hobbies. And I think now it's easier than ever to be a multifaceted person, right? You don't have to be good at just one thing. You can be a writer and whatever else you do for a day job. You can be a mother and be a passionate dancer. You can do all these things, maybe not at the same time or on the same day, but they can be part of who you are. You can weave them into the fabric of your being until you have this complex, multifaceted character that is you, that's writing the story of your own life, right? I think that's really, really important. And then you have to have, what's the word? Persistence. Because if you really want something and you go one way and that way doesn't work, that doesn't mean you're not meant to have it. That just means that that's not the way for you. And I would say one of the things that I'm reminding myself of on a daily basis is be open to the possibility of it being easier than you think it can be. I think holding the vision and the vision doesn't have to be super clear. Like when I published The Little Rose, I had no idea I was going to have more than one book. No clue. Like I thought, got a number one best-selling book, check the box, yay, mom is proud, good, move on. But I didn't know what I was going to move on to. But then I got another idea and another idea. And I was like, well, this is what's pulling me more passionately than anything else I have going on in my life. Let me just try, right? I think thinking of the feeling that you want to experience, holding the vision of how you want to feel is better than holding a rigid vision of what you want to accomplish, right? Because if you have a feeling you want to achieve, there's infinite ways to get there. If you have a solid image of something you want to achieve, maybe that achievement isn't the thing that really is it for you. And you're going to find out along the journey, but you won't know if you hold too tight, you know? I know a lot of authors, they say, oh, I want to hit the New York Times bestseller list, but what does that really mean? And do you really want that? Or do you just want your books to be well loved? Do you want to have an impact? Do you need that accolade? And there's nothing wrong with having it. It's amazing if you have it. But if you don't get that, would you still be happy and fulfilled if you achieve these other feelings? Like those kinds of things. Think about what is the feeling behind the goal? And then how can I get there? And how can I get there? A little taste of it each day, right? Step by step by step by step, and keep that persistence going. Because if you keep going, eventually you're going to get there. And I've been doing this for 14 years now, which is mind blowing. 14 years I've been free. I've been a creativepreneur. I've been creating the things I want to create. It's not always been easy, but holy cow, it's rewarding, and my brand has shifted, my business has shifted, my family has shifted, the things I choose has shifted, and I'm open to that. I'm open to that evolution. I want to evolve. I want to have merchandise. I want to, you know, do things that are fun for me. I don't want to keep doing the same thing over and over and over because that gets boring. I was doing that before. So I think being open to change and not too resistant to it, not holding on to that one idea, just following the passion, following the inspiration, taking steps every day, being open to the course correction. You have the GPS in your car, right? And you're like, oh, I want to go to this place. And it's nighttime. So you can only see the headlights in front of your car. You can't see the whole path. And then when you get halfway there, you're like, wait a second, that road looks really interesting. I don't know why, but I really want to go that direction, you know? And allowing yourself the freedom to not be like, well, I need to be over there. I need to, the time. No. Don't overthink it. Just follow that intuition and go down that windy path and see what's there for you. You can always turn around and go right back to the other place, right? But you only have to see the 4 feet that's in front of you, right? The next step, the next step, the next step. And if you feel stuck, that's okay. Take a break. Take a break, walk away from it for a little bit and come back. Just make sure you come back because you're going to come back recharged and you're going to have new ideas. Just be open to the fact that they're going to barge in on you. You're going to be in the shower and a story is going to start writing itself. Dialogue's going to happen if you're writing a book. Like things are going to happen and celebrating along the way. That's the other thing. I think you got to have the vision, you got to hold the feeling, right? And then celebrate the little wins. Because if you wait until you have whatever it is your goal is, like in our case, a book, right? That's years of work. Like, why would you wait years to celebrate? And you should when it does come out, but you can also celebrate along the way, like getting the first chapter done, getting the editing done, getting the illustrations done, having the cover finalized. All these are milestones that are worthy of achievement and celebration. And if you're doing those rewarding things along the way, you're going to be much more likely to wake up the next day and say, okay, let's take the next 5 steps, right? So yes, you'll get there.
I hope you found a much needed inspiration in our conversation with Sheri and that you're ready to set up some of those goals. If you'd like to find out more about Sheri and her work, visit her website at sherifink.com. And to get her books, go to whimsicalworld.com, which ships worldwide. All the links are in the show notes. As we find ourselves in the Sagittarius zodiac season, this is the perfect time to act upon that inspiration we just gained from Sheri. As this season is all about taking action towards our dreams, as well as acknowledging where we are at and where we want to be. So, what are the changes that need to take place in your life in order to get to your desired destination from where you are now? What action do you need to take so your life takes on a positive change and next year, by this time, you feel accomplished? Sit with these thoughts, walk with them, or use them as a journal prompt. Do some daydreaming, see what comes, and then perhaps sit down and write a letter to Santa. When was the last time you wrote to Santa? Perhaps it's time you pick up the pen again. Only this time, it won't be necessarily a list of presents, but rather a beautiful act of self-love. I started writing letters to Santa just a few years ago. Instead of naming the gifts I'd like him to bring, I shared with him my hopes and wishes for the year to come. And I gave my thanks for the gifts of the past year too. And by writing this letter to Santa, I also set up a first few goals for the year to come. So put on that Christmas music, light up the candle and write your letter to Santa. What will you ask for, I wonder? Will you ask for your dreams to come true? For a better future? Or perhaps just for the strength to hope? The second Advent candle, which we're going to light up on the 8th of December, the candle of Bethlehem, symbolizes peace. I personally take it as a beautiful invitation to not only bring more peace and calm into my life, but also to make peace with myself, make peace with where I'm in my life and with the things I can't change, make peace with not being perfect, as that's something I do struggle with. What do you need to make peace with? And how can you bring more peace into your days? Hi, it's Aragorn again. My favorite time of year is here, and so I wanted to share with you some thoughts. Winter really is my favorite time because it means my humans spend much more time at home, which means more cuddles and happy naps on the sofa surrounded by my loved ones. It also means lots of beautiful lights everywhere and shiny dangling things on a pretty spiky tree they always bring home at this time of the year. I like to hide underneath it and pretend I'm in a wild forest and chase my bros, or just take a lovely nap there. But most of all, I just love the lights. Whenever I wake up and my human is putting up the lights, I can't help staring at them. They are so magical. I could look at them for hours. And I also know the cozy time is nearly here, which is great news. But what I really came to share with you here today is not just my love for the lights and this season, but that it is precisely the lights you should focus on. I often notice how my humans are so busy with all kinds of ridiculous tasks, really, and so stressed. They're actually missing the point, which is to stop and stare at the lights. If you do it for long enough, you notice incredible things. How every light is slightly different, how it changes the darker it gets, and the different feelings it can create within you. It can even take you out on an adventure in your mind. I like to pretend these lights come alive and I chase them and collect them all one by one and then get a juicy treat. But also, just the sight of them makes me happy. And that's what it truly is, a feeling of happiness. So, as you prepare for the season ahead, remember to stop and stare at the lights, but also that the true magic you keep chasing is already here. And it is enough, because it is the feeling. It is the feeling of the season. And that's all you really need, just to stop and realize it's here and take it all in. No need to do more. And with that, my dear ones, with this precious advice from Aragorn for peaceful Advent time, we have come to the end of today's episode. I hope you feel just a bit more hopeful and inspired to create Christmas of your dreams, no matter what that means to you. Me and the Cat Coaches would love to see you over on Substack, where we share not just new episodes of the podcast, but also all new Cat Coach Diaries, like the one I just read out for you. The next one is coming out next Sunday, December 8th, just when we light up the candle of peace. So make sure to not miss it. And if you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a follow, leave a review, a rating. It will help us reach wider audience, and we will appreciate it so very much. You can also follow us on Instagram at MoneyForce or at Cat Coach Diaries for more of the Cat Coach's secret lives. Until next time, stay cozy, stay warm, and cuddle those cats of yours. I'll see you in 2 weeks' time.